On a misty morning in March 1803, a group of fishermen along the eastern coast of Japan, just north of what is now known as Hitachi, noticed something unusual floating on the waves. At first glance, it didn't resemble any known vessel. Instead, it looked like an intricately carved artifact, more reminiscent of a ceremonial relic than anything built for sea travel. Curious and unsettled, the fishermen hauled it ashore. What they discovered on that remote stretch of beach would soon become one of Japan's oldest unsolved mysteries. Before we dive into the heart of today's strange encounter, don't forget to like and subscribe, because you never know what secrets history still hides in plain sight. The object was about 18 feet long and 11 feet tall, far smaller than the merchant ships or coastal defense vessels of that time. The base appeared to be constructed from metal. Its upper half was crafted from a deep, lacquered wood, and the walls were lined with transparent glass-like panels arranged in a circular formation. It was unlike anything the villagers had ever seen. It looked less like a boat and more like a precision-engineered artifact, designed with clear purpose and technical sophistication. Then, from inside this mysterious vessel, a woman appeared. She stood around 5 feet tall. Her skin was incredibly pale, so light it almost shimmered in the morning light. Her hair burned a vivid red, reminiscent of dried blood, cascading down her back in thick waves. But perhaps most unsettling of all, she spoke a language no one could identify. It wasn't Japanese. It bore no resemblance to the languages of foreign traders, such as Dutch or Portuguese, who occasionally docked at Nagasaki. The woman clutched a wooden box, roughly 2 feet long, holding it tightly to her chest. Inside the vessel were several containers of drinking water, a small stash of dried food, and strange symbols etched into the wood, unlike any written script known in Japan at the time. It was as though she had been sent on a one-way journey, prepared for survival, but with no known destination. The villagers were left speechless. They had never encountered anything or anyone like this. In a society regulated by strict customs and deeply rooted in isolationist policies, the sudden appearance of a foreign woman in such an otherworldly craft posed a dangerous conundrum. The community stood suspended between awe and fear, as the strange woman sat silently within the vessel. Clutching her wooden box with unwavering grip, whispers spread through the crowd. Was she a sign? A warning? Or something else entirely? An elderly man stepped forward from among the onlookers. His name was Daichi Nakamura, a respected elder who had lived in the village for nearly 8 decades. He stared at the woman, then quietly told a tale that sent a hush over the gathering. He recalled an old legend, passed down through generations, of a royal figure from distant lands, a princess who defied an arranged marriage for the sake of true love. According to the tale, her lover was executed, and she was sentenced to exile. Nakamura believed the box the woman clutched might contain the last trace of that forbidden love, possibly even the man's severed head. A chill swept over the group. No one moved. They watched the woman as if she were a ghost stepped out of legend, a figure drawn from the shadows of collective memory. The air thickened with uncertainty, and as the day wore on, with no one daring to approach or intervene, the villagers realized they were facing a riddle not just of history, but of fate. In a quiet and tense meeting, the village elders knew that keeping the woman could lead to consequences none of them could foresee. At the time, Japan was under the Sakoku policy, a strict and unforgiving form of national isolation. Any contact with foreigners, no matter how minor, was considered a serious offense. If the imperial authorities learned that a small coastal village had sheltered a foreign woman, the repercussions could be devastating. Entire communities had been wiped from official records before, as warnings to others. One elder, a man known as Masaru Ojima, spoke with solemn clarity. He said, "If this woman was truly meant to drift between the waves, then returning her to the sea is the only mercy we can offer." And with that, the villagers came to a quiet but unified decision. They would send her back, her and the strange craft she arrived in. The vessel, now known as Utsuro-bune, or the hollow ship, was slowly pushed back into the open sea. The woman remained just as they had found her, seated in silence, her arms wrapped protectively around the wooden box. Then, as the tide rose, the current carried her away. No one said a word. It was as though she had never been there at all. Stories like this often fade into obscurity, just like the vessel itself, swept away by time and tide. But what makes the tale of the mysterious woman and the Utsuro-bune truly extraordinary is that it didn't vanish into folklore. Instead, it was meticulously documented in multiple historical records from the Edo period. Across yellowed scrolls and preserved texts of 19th century Japan, the account appears not just once, but in several different manuscripts. Tales from Saido Bay, Chronicles of the Eastern Waters, and the account of Nwari Village. Each tells the story in a slightly different way, as if the tale had washed ashore in separate lands and was retold by different voices. And yet, the core details remain strikingly consistent. The round, hollow boat, the red-haired woman, the incomprehensible language, and the sealed box she refused to let go of. But the mystery didn't end with old texts. Japanese scholars of the 1800s began to ask questions that still puzzle historians today. Where had the vessel come from? Who could have built something so intricate? And why would such a craft appear in a country that was entirely closed to the outside world? While no ancient manuscript offers a definitive answer, modern researchers have noticed striking similarities between the woman's appearance and the fashion popular in 18th century Russia, particularly in the era after Catherine the Great. Red hair, pale skin, and ornate European-style robes matched descriptions found in Dutch traders' notes from their dealings with Russian nobles. One of the earliest scholars to propose this connection was Professor Kinjiro Watanabe of the Meiji University Historical Institute. He suggested that the woman might have been Russian, or perhaps from a Eurasian lineage tied to the borderlands, places where icy winters and imperial courts coexisted under fragile peace. Her clothes, her language, and the unknown technology of her vessel hinted at a royal or high-born origin, cast adrift in circumstances lost to history. And yet, despite all efforts, the woman's identity and the contents of that box remains one of Japan's oldest and most perplexing mysteries. In the early 1800s, an American historian named Dr. Matthew Leclerc became fascinated with an obscure Japanese tale known as the Utsuro-bune incident. After years of comparative research, he began drawing parallels between the strange vessel described in Japan and testimonies from other seafarers who had traveled through northern regions. One of these was a former U.S. naval interpreter, Thomas Callahan, who had been shipwrecked and lived in Siberia from 1782 to 1792. Callahan described encountering Russian women with vivid red hair, wrapped in thick fur-lined garments, and using a unique writing system composed of slanted, flowing symbols that didn't resemble anything from the West or East. Interestingly, these strange handwritten symbols closely matched the ones carved into the walls of the mysterious craft found off Japan's eastern coast. They didn't resemble Cyrillic or any other known alphabet at the time. The resemblance sparked theories that the woman aboard the vessel may have originated from somewhere in the far north. But another theory emerged, one rooted deep within Japan's own heritage. In its vast archive of folklore, there exists a nearly forgotten tale bearing eerie similarities to the Utsuro-bune story. The legend tells of the origins of the Kagawa family, a real noble bloodline that once ruled part of the island of Shikoku. According to ancient accounts dating back to the 7th century, a fisherman from what is now Kochi Prefecture rescued a 13-year-old girl adrift in a hollow boat. She claimed to be the daughter of a Chinese emperor, fleeing a ruthless stepmother. Welcomed by the villagers, she eventually married a local prince. Their son would later establish the Kagawa clan, a family believed to carry the legacy of royal blood from distant lands. For centuries, this tale was regarded as mere legend. Yet historians eventually uncovered fragments of ancient genealogical scrolls and hand-drawn illustrations. These records depicted a circular boat and a young woman whose features didn't align with typical Japanese portraits of the time. Strangely, this story predates the Utsuro-bune incident by nearly 1,000 years. Despite attempts to ground the legend in conventional history, details persisted that defied explanation. The vessel described in 1803 was no ordinary craft. According to early records, its base was made of polished dark metal. Its upper body was formed from lacquered wood, and transparent panels, similar to glass, were arranged around its circumference, resembling a giant lens. The vessel lacked sails, oars, or rudder. It had no mechanism for propulsion, as if it was never meant to float upon the sea at all. At the time, no one had ever imagined the concept of an unidentified flying object. And yet, drawings of the Utsuro-bune found in early 19th century texts look strikingly like what modern eyes would call a flying saucer. So a new theory took shape. What if this mysterious craft hadn't arrived from another country, but from another world? Over 200 years have passed since the Utsuro-bune slipped back into the ocean and disappeared. No one knows what became of the woman aboard, and yet her story has lingered. Not fully legend, not fully history. It resides in that strange liminal space between the rational and the unknown. Perhaps the real question isn't just what the vessel was, but who the woman was. Was she a banished royal? A survivor of a forgotten civilization? Or could she be proof of contact with a world beyond our own? Centuries before such ideas had entered the global consciousness? We may never know for certain. But the echoes of her story remind us that not every question has an answer, and some mysteries are destined to remain open. If this story moved you or sparked curiosity, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Was she a princess, a time traveler, or something more? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story.